I am Bet Tzedek's elder abuse prevention advocate. My role is to go out into the community and do educational pieces, et cetera, in regards to elder abuse, fraud, scams, prevention. Today we're going to be talking about Leaving a Legacy, which is a program that I talk about most often. Prior to that, I want to give you a quick overview about Bet Tzedek. So even when
I'm waiting for it.
even when it gets started, we'll just pass over some of those slides. So this brochure you have is Bet Tzedek as a whole. We're in our 51st year in Los Angeles County as a nonprofit organization. When you open the brochure tells you all the services and programs that we offer for free in Los Angeles County. Okay? So the key word is free. These are services that you have access to all the time, so we want you to know who we are. If you look at the back, there's more information on the back, but also what's on the back too is it tells you that we do these services, and we have about 9,000 people every year in Los Angeles County, and we do it with about 110 employees and about 1,200 volunteers. So if you can imagine people coming in, volunteering their time, so you guys in the community can have better services so we can all live better. That is the organization that we are, okay? And so today, again, I'll have some things passed out throughout the day about the Leaving a Legacy program. And I think we got a picture. That's when my hair is going. You know, so that's not every day. So, you know, you always put the best stuff up there. So that's kind of a little bit about Bet Tzedek. And we're going to pass over some of those slides. And the only other thing I'll tell you is that we've been doing this work in the community in regards to advanced planning, estate planning, et cetera, for more than 30 years. And we also do a conservatorship clinic, which 70% of LA County residents that have seek out conservatorship has come through the Bet Tzedek no-cost clinic for assistance. And so those are some of the things that falls up under the Justice for Seniors and the Leaving the Legacy program. So if you look in there, you'll see the Justice for Seniors. Okay, that is my area, that is my unit, that's the round that we'll be discussing. So let me try to move forward. Okay, the slides are not coinciding, right? That's it on there. Oh, okay, there we are. Okay, so what is advanced planning? Some people call it advanced planning, some people call it estate planning. Basically, okay, that's it. I'm gonna look at this if it just goes there. And so basically, what that is being able to make decisions about life choices while your mind is mentally able to do so in a sound capacity, okay? So, before death, decisions about physical inability or mental incapacity, being able to make those decisions, okay? After death, decisions about your remains and your assets. You know, so I'll use my mom a lot of times throughout here just as examples. And so she's a person with her paperwork, she's like, I never want to be cremated. So people have different wishes, religious beliefs, so on and so forth. And they have different things of what they think about they want their end of life to be. And I'm a senior too, believe it or not. So I can tell when I can't see. And so I'm like, okay, senior moment. Okay, so that's just kind of what advanced planning and estate planning is. Okay. And so with that being the case, why is it important? Okay, you want to avoid costs, you want to plan. It makes it easier for your family. You want to be able to avoid abuse if you can. These are why these things are in place for all of us. Common issues when we fail to plan. Before death, loss of capacity. So you were fine one day, next day you can't remember a thing, you don't know who anybody is. Mental capacity sometimes disappears like that. Sometimes it's over a period of time, sometimes it's immediate. And at that time, you may need court intervention, a conservatorship, or a family member or someone to take over and take care of you. Losing money, different things of that nature, because maybe you're a victim of scam, maybe you're not paying your stuff, maybe you're giving it out, just a million different things, how these things occur in the average family that we probably we see as neighbors all the time and don't know what's happening. After death, it's about intestate, I never get this word right, okay? But it's about not having the court be involved. It's about not spending the money. It's about not being able to contest what you've already put together. So I can't pronounce it, but I can tell you what it means, right? So challenges to planning, mortality, disability. You know, one day you're good, one day you're not. So I use it all the time. Denial, when it comes down to planning. You tried it and somebody denied you, you gave up. Maybe you don't know where to get these resources from, especially for free. You know, these types of services can cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, okay? And then just not having no plans. And that's what we find a lot of people do, is have no plan. And part of that, before we get to this slide here, is we saw a lot during COVID where people went to the hospital, never came home, no family had access to them at the hospital to make decisions, no access to their place, because there was no paperwork on file. So of course nobody's expecting this, but we saw a whirlwind effect around the globe that everybody is facing. So even though these services have been available for a while, if you didn't know them, you didn't do them, we saw the effect of what happens when you don't have it. So people passed away in the hospital, family never got a chance to see them, went to their place to get their stuff, had problems getting in, stuff going into probate. You see, it's a lot of downfalls that come along with this, and this is why we want you to think about it now. And it's a complicated thought process. Who wants to think about, well, when I die, or if I lose my memory, what should I do? Nobody wants to think about that. We want to think about today, okay? And so in thinking about today, we're going to include some things. And so let's talk about capacity. Okay, so capacity, the California law sets our judicial standard for general competency to make decisions. The law is known as the Due Process and Competency Determination Act, DPCDA, and it's also in the Penal Code section, which is, of course, the criminal law book for any laws that individuals break. And so interesting enough that you would have a due process of competency law that crosses over into the penal code. It crosses over into the penal code because it's necessary. So, capacity also talks about financial power of attorney, understanding the nature and the purpose and effect of the terms. Capacity has to be available to do an advanced healthcare directive, the ability to understand the nature and the consequences of a decision and able to communicate that decision, okay? Will understand what you have and whom you want to leave it to. So those are just the generic things that the due process law has in effect for you to utilize in knowing how to make decisions, and then also in understanding what those decisions are and the laws that apply to them. And so who decides when a person lacks capacity? So it's not your kids and your grandkids. Oh, Mom, you're just forgetting everything. You this, you that. No, they don't make that decision. Because if that's the case, my kids would have got me out of long time. Okay, like, period. So your primary care physician will determine when you're able to make decisions about your health. Unless a client, being yourself, has a specific advanced directive, which is a healthcare directive. Okay? And so what happens is, your primary care physician, for most of you, you've probably been going to for some length of time, so they kind of know you. They know if you're walking a little bit different, you're talking a little bit slow. They kind of got a feel for you. You've been going for a while. So what happens is, when they start seeing a decline, or someone brings information to them that you're declining, they may give you those little simple tests, you know, like pictures, you know, draw a line to the dog, and put a check mark, and this and that, the other. And so they start processes like that. If you do well on that process, they may not go to the next level because it's very complicated for whatever reason in getting diagnosis and getting capacity levels checked. You have to be very aggressive as the individual or the family member wanting to go down this route. Okay, and so those are some of the beginning stages. Okay, so just kind of know that the doctor is the one who sets, is this person have mental capacity or not? So planning for the future. The tools would be the Advanced Healthcare Directive, durable power of attorney, which is a director for your finances only, wills, living trust, transfer on deeds, special needs pool. That's generally if you have a dependent, disabled dependent over the age of 18. So planning can help you avoid the need for conservatorship, especially with somebody with dementia and memory issues, limited conservatorship, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what it does. So again, the advanced planning twos, advanced healthcare directive, DNR, which is do not resuscitate. And some people do that. So you see a lot of people that may have terminal illnesses and they're like, you know what, don't do it. So my mother-in-law, some years ago, had throat cancer, if I'm not mistaken, it was throat cancer. And so she was on her way out, she already knew it, and she's like, don't bring me back. If I go, and I'm going, let me go, because they're gonna come pump me up and do all this stuff that's gonna cost $1 million, and then in another week, I'm gonna be gone anyway. You see what I'm saying? So some people wanna make that decision. They want to go out gracefully. Some people say that those types of resuscitation procedures may be harmful. We don't know what's going on if we've never experienced it, but people like to make decisions about that, okay? And so that's an advanced planning too. You can make that decision with your doctor at any time you want. You can have a representative page, Social Security, whatever. You can go down there and say, hey, I want my daughter Lisa to be my payee if I can't get in here or whatever. Wills, trusts, conservatorships, etc. So those are all your advanced planning twos. So let's just talk about a few of them in an introductory way. And I know we're strapped on time because it's my fault, so I'm going to shorten it. Okay, I'll go until you guys kick me out, okay?
You're always welcome.
Okay, great. So what is an advanced care directive? Everything you need to know, because I want you to understand more so what this is as you're thinking about it. So an advanced healthcare directive is a legal document that allows a person to make decisions now for healthcare treatment in the future if and when he or she is unable to make decisions. So again, so if my mom goes to the hospital and she needs to be on a ventilator, her rule is leave the ventilator on until the electricity goes out. Period. I'm on here, I don't care what's doing it. Okay? Some other people might be like, you know what? I know what's inevitable or what could happen if I'm on a ventilator. Maybe I want to stay for a week or two, and as a family, we have to make a decision. So people have different thoughts for different reasons. Maybe you have cancer, maybe this, maybe that. And so that's what this document is. And I know a lot of you may have had this experience in the basis that maybe you went to the hospital for an outpatient procedure, okay? And so you get there and they say, well, do you have your healthcare directors? No, what is that? Oh, well, you gotta fill out these 20 forms right here and let us know what you want us to do if something happens. Well, what do you mean if something happens? You're just doing my eyes. Well, if something happens, we have to know what to do, because nothing is 100%. So you sit there before they admit you fill out these 20 pages, well, do this, do that, whatever, and they check you out, okay, fine, get you in, you get your outpatient procedure, everything went well. Well, that was great, but guess what? That healthcare directive was just for that outpatient procedure at that facility for that day. It doesn't apply to anything else or anywhere else. You have to have an official one that is then given to your healthcare providers, put in the system so they know for the future, okay? So just know that this is how much this is mandatory, because technically speaking, and this I know for a fact, you can go in for something as simple as an eye situation and never come home. And that's why that form is mandatory before they let you in. Anything can go wrong, okay? And I know this for a fact. And so it seems scary, but it's very real. And we need to have these discussions and open up to them, because we do want our family and friends to advocate for us. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so it's also known, a healthcare directive is also known durable power of attorney for healthcare, advanced directive, living will. So you got a lot of different names that it can go up under. The main components of an advanced directive is being able to appoint someone myself, your grandkids, kids, whomever, someone that you trust. Remember that part. You can appoint someone, but make sure that it's someone that you trust, okay? And when you're making that appointment, you're talking to them, and you guys are going over it. You know, like my mom, don't pull the ventilator, period, okay? And if I go down, don't cremate me, never. So we have to have these discussions, because I can't read her mind. And you know, these days, everything's so expensive, the most thing people do is cremations, but maybe it's against your religious belief. No one knows that if you never have the conversation. And so that's why this is so important, okay? And you don't have to have one person, you can have two people if you like. Okay, I want Lisa to do this, I want Joey to do that, okay? So you can split it up and give them separate responsibilities to some degree. And so with that, it'll have instructions for your healthcare treatment and your preferences. At that point, once it's done, it is then given to your healthcare provider in the system for anyone that needs to access your care through your network, okay? So what can happen if a client does not have a healthcare director? So we kind of talked about the COVID situations and things we've seen. So if you become incapacitated and you don't have a healthcare directive, the family may have to seek a conservatorship. And so just briefly on the conservatorship, because if I have a slide, we'll overpass it. But a conservatorship is, okay, you got dad at home, he's been at home for a while, you go over there once every couple of weeks. Now you're going over there, the house is untidy, no food, everything is sporting, something looks bad, dad is untidy. But dad's mind is clear. Dad, I'd like to come and help. No, I can do everything myself. I don't want you coming in, I got it, whatever. Well, part of that is because who wants to have their responsibilities taken from them? Because they kind of, especially as you're aging, it's like, I don't have nothing left for myself. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm realizing that dad is frail and that he's harming himself. So now I have to go get a conservatorship, I gotta go to the judge, okay, I gotta pay some money. I have to get all the doctor's records, the doctor has to say that dad is incapacitated mentally. All these things have to line up. Then I have to get a court date, so he might be looking at a year to make a decision for dad who needs a decision right now, okay? And then the judge has to approve you. Once you're approved, you're in the system, and every quarter you have to give a report to the judge's system. Okay, this is the medicine, you went to the doctor, you got to give a report of this whole lot. And so you're under the radar as well. And so that's what happens. Why is it bad? Because it costs money. Court proceedings are public, anybody can come in, okay? And the court will be involved until dad dies. So if you want to do that, I mean, people have to do it, but if you can avoid it, we're having the conversation now. Healthcare directive, take you know, a very short time, services are free, so on and so forth. So what do you need to be aware of when you're discussing the end of life, okay? Your healthcare options, they're emotional, okay? They may be sensitive, you know, cultural, religious values, we kind of talked about that. Those are all the things that come up when you're having this discussion. But one thing I want you to know, though, is these days, the younger generation, 50 and below, they're more active into the world of different stuff, and they're more able to handle these types of conversations than way back in the day. And so we know way back in the day, a lot of you may have gotten your paperwork, but you took your paperwork and you hid it under the mattress, or you put it in the shoebox on the left of the closet, and nobody knew anything. So when you die, then what's the rule to the family? Well, I'm the oldest, I get everything, and I'm not sharing with anybody, okay? So now, as the oldest, I've taken everything, sorted it all out, I'm not sharing with anybody, the family's in a disarray. That's not what anybody wants, right? And then guess what? While I'm selling the house and moving out, I pull that shoebox out the top, and what do I see? I see the paperwork that was done that nobody told anybody about. Okay, there was no discussion. It's too late, the house is gone, generational wealth is gone, the family's gone. And so nobody's working hard and buying houses and paying for 30 years to just die and do nothing and let it go to the wind. There's a plan that most people have, and if you don't, maybe you want to create one. So, what should a client do after completing the healthcare advance directive? Make his or her wishes known to the family, to the agents, healthcare providers, to everybody. Keep a copy in the drawer. You got 50 kids, everybody get a copy, so it's no argument what's going on. Well, Joey, no, mom has it right here. This is what we're doing. You have to abide by that. That's a legal contract. Provide copies of the events directive to, again, your agents, family, friends. Keep a list of every person and facility that has a copy, you know, on the side of the bed. So that's what you have on the drawer on the side of the bed. You can keep a little card in your wallet. So if something happened, you know, tragically, a car accident or something crazy, you know, that we don't foresee, you have something in your wallet that says, hey, I have a healthcare director, contact Lisa, she has all my information, okay? So that's what a healthcare advance directive is in a nutshell. So a will, we kind of know what the will is, and here we go with a California probate code section. And when we hear code section just means those are the laws for that particular subject matter or arena. So probably, let's say if you hear DMV, you know who that is. So they have a whole code book full of don't run the light, if you run the light, you know, speed limits. So code means laws for that subject matter. Insurance code, okay, which is where I retired from after 32 years as an investigator. So that's a whole law book full of codes that work with others. So that's why when you saw in the other code, when we were talking about the healthcare directive, we also saw the penal code. Okay, so some code sections, which are some laws in different arenas, coincide with each other to add more charges or more things toward a subject matter that it may be challenging, okay? So provide simple instructions for distributing assets. That's what a will does. All you have to do is just be 18 or older and in sound mind. So there we go, sound mind capacity, same thing. You can't do any legal contract unless you're in sound mind, okay? Meaning 18 and over and able to comprehend and explain what this contract is you just did. So what can a client do with a will? Designate beneficiaries for your personal residence. Designate beneficiaries for all your assets. Provide specific gifts. I want the family heirloom to go to Lisa because she's the most responsible or cutest in the family. I don't know. One of the two, okay? And so designate beneficiaries of your remaining assets. I want Lisa to have this, Joey to have that, you know, grandkids, whatever. You can even put different things, cancer society, whatever. So you have your choices to be able to do those types of things. You can designate a guardian, which is a guardian for a minor child. So let's say you're taking care of somebody disabled, or maybe you have a disabled person and you're worried, like if something happens, who's gonna take care of Joey? He has problems. I need the right person. You can set it up with that as well. And then an executor, which is someone who is going to follow through with all your wishes. So that's pretty kind of generic. And so beneficiaries, and think of this on everything we're talking about. It may be a beneficiary, it may be a trustee, a conservatee. They all have these different names, but they kind of mean the same kind of thing to some degree. So a beneficiary is somebody who's going to get something you left. But then at the same time, when you're looking at beneficiaries, those are generally some of the same people you look at when you're thinking about doing a trust. When you're thinking about having somebody advocate for your health care, you know, you're going to grab somebody that you trust who's probably going to be a beneficiary. So you see how it kind of coincides with each other? But it's a thought process. Who in your family, who can you trust? My sister, brother, whomever, okay? And so again, family members, friends, domestic partners, we talk about charitable organizations. So those are all options that you have for all of these services. An executor is a person or an institution, in case you're using an organization, named in the will and appointed by the probate court who collects and manages your assets, pays your debts, et cetera, distributes assets to the beneficiaries. So kind of the same. Interchangeable, sometimes with different words. What can a statutory will not do? And so the reason I put a few slides on here is wills, because we all know wills. You can handwrite a will. There's 2 or 3 different wills. You can handwrite a will, have it notarized, do this and that. But then sometimes when you do some of those handwritten things and you don't look at the probate code and you don't have any guidance, then what happens, we see things like, Michael Jackson or James Brown, I think of him, Prince. even, so I'm only thinking famous people. But they died, and it took 3 years for anybody to get their stuff. Because they didn't have nothing ready. See what I'm saying? And while those 3 years is going, the money is depleting, the bills still got to get back. The court and the probate and the arguing and the this and that, that's all coming from the estate. So this is why we want you to have something thought of, okay? So also, you cannot, you got 3 kids, Joey gets on your last nerves, he's always doing something, you love him to death, but you don't love him that much, okay? And so you cannot do like Bet Tzedek and maybe some other organizations on a will say, you know what, I'm gonna give it to Sally and Sue, but I ain't leaving Joey or Don. You can't do that on a will. Now, you can do that in other ways, maybe with power of attorneys or trusts and different things like that. But on a will, you can't really do that. Joey's gonna argue it down for the rest of his life, and, whatever little money it was is gonna bleed down because everybody's arguing. What is required to complete a will? Testamentary capacity. Okay. Client must understand what property he or she owns, what he or she intends to do with the property through the will, who is the natural heirs of the people. And so let's say my sister's on my mom's stuff, well, she passed away. Okay, unfortunately. So the next would be her kids, if nothing is regenerated. And so, sometimes people have kids you don't know about, or kids don't know about the woodworks or whatever. So when you're making these kinds of decisions, make sure you kind of know. Okay, well, Joey's not gonna be able to do anything, but Joey has 3 wonderful kids, we can do a college fund or whatever. So just kind of know how the line falls, chain of command, one might say. You also have to have witnesses, 2 witnesses that will sign, and then you should have your document notarized. So that's mostly what a will does, and I will talk about this too, is that a will is not designed to reduce your taxes, okay? Statutory will should not be used if the assets are currently worth more than $5 million. Yay! The client owns a business related to the assets, and we have a lot of business owners. Clients wants to create a trust fund for their child's education, et cetera, et cetera. Those are things that wouldn't necessarily be available in the will, but those are things that you can certainly do in a trust and in other avenues. So it's a lot of things that people think about. All these different things we're talking about, everybody has a different scenario, okay? Again, different type of wills, typewritten, attorney prepared, statutory, blah, blah. I always say that you should have your paperwork done through an attorney, a licensed attorney that, of course, you check at the Bar Association, make sure they're licensed in the good standard. Okay, for anything that you do, there's a state agency, contractor, beautician, whatever it is, there's a state agency that governs that realm of services, and they have laws and regulations and XYZ that they have to abide by. So just always know that. So having an attorney do your will and whatever, and having it notarized is way more argumentative than the handwritten will that was in the top of the box. Okay, nobody's gonna really argue too much over that, and if they do, it's gonna be a short argument. Does the will give away all your assets? No. Okay, so some assets, like life insurance, retirement plans, etc., joint tenancies, so you have a business, or maybe you own a condo with somebody else, transfer on debt, so on and so forth. Wills don't address those issues, but a trust does. So I wanted you to know kind of a little bit the difference, because a lot of times people will be like, oh, I have a will. The one I wrote up about 15 years ago, never told anybody about. So I just kind of want you to know some of the things that come up when we're dealing with these types of things. So you can make changes to your will or to any of these things we're talking about at any different time that you want by replacing it with a new one. Just that simple. When should a will be changed? If a person should seek advice with a lawyer to make a new will, marriage or divorce, death in the family, changes, birthday, new births, whatever. So just because you have it 15 years ago, it could be something different that you want now. People fall off, people add on, you wanna leave your great grandson of the world. The daddy gets nothing, but the grandson gets it all. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, so real quick, we'll talk about the California statutory form, power of attorney. So the power of attorney is the one, it's just like a healthcare directive, but it's only for your finances. That's the difference. Power of attorney, you see the probate code again. So again, you got the code, the law book that's going to describe everything that is allowable and what should happen if you're doing a power of attorney, the rules that everyone must follow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So it allows you to grant an agent being a truster, an executor, a person, is what I'm gonna call them. Okay? So you grant an agent the authority to manage your finances. And that can include everything, bank accounts, retirement, social security, house. You can do everything, or you can do a few things. Okay, so that's the good thing about a power of attorney. You got 2 kids or something, maybe Joy is really good with his finances and calculating, and then, maybe I'm good with, managing, stuff around the house internally or different things like that. So we have 2 different strengths. So I have 2 people. I can say, look, I want Joey to do, my bank account, property, this, that, the other, but I want Lisa to do these other matters here. And there's a checklist for a trust. It's about 20 check marks that you can say all of the above, none of the above, or check off the different ones, life insurance, property, this, that, okay? It's signed, it's notarized, et cetera, et cetera. It should go to anyone. If you have social security, retirement, bank accounts, whatever, it should go, a copy of this should go to everybody, because what happens when you can't talk or tell your information? Nobody knows. Nobody's listening to Joey calling, well, I'm calling in for mom, she's sick, she can't talk right now. Oh, well, that's too bad, Joey, but we don't know you. So it's important when you do this, you send it to the retirement company. And so if a year later, or a month later, or 6 years later, something happens, and Joey has to call in, hey, I need to get the social security information, they'll be like, oh yeah, Joey, okay, you're right here, send us whatever, we'll send you that, okay? There's still what's the word I want to use? I'm going to say approval, but that's not the right word. Let me just say like a check and balance. So yeah, you can call and say, I'm Joey, give me mom's social security information, whatever. Okay, well, Joey, even though I have a Joey on file, Joey needs to prove to me that he's Joey, okay, before I release the information, okay? And so that's still the check and balance, even though it's there, okay? Joey can't just call in and be anybody. So power of attorneys for finances allows you to appoint agents. Agent's authority. So authority means what can that person do? The agent is Joey. So appoint Joey. What can Joey do? Do I have to keep Joey forever, or is he revocable? Okay. Can Joey do abuse? Well, anything in the planet can lead to abuse. And so nothing is 100%. But having layers of protection can be better than not having anything. So there are some limitations. Okay. So that's what everything that we're discussing. So, duties and prohibitions of financial agents. Keep property separate. Okay, they have to keep, and when I say property, it's not just a physical home or something like that. Your property is your clothing, it's your furniture, it's your car, it's whatever you have. That is your property. And so Joey has to keep your property separate from his property. So Joey doesn't now have 2 cars, your car and his car. Your car is separate, okay, up under these terms. Use assets for the other's benefit. So Joey can't just use your car and start going to the store shopping and buying groceries for his girlfriend, Joey has to use whatever he's taking out for your benefit. And so technically speaking, Joey should kind of keep a thing. And so, as much as I know, I still kind of keep a thing. If I transfer some money or do something, I'll make it clear, okay, this was to fix the screen door at this address. So if somebody comes back along the way and says, I did something funny, I don't know. Now, nobody says I have to do that, but I need to do that for my own self in the event that anything is ever challenged. I just wanna be protective of what I'm doing and protective of what my mom expects me to do. Cannot use assets for self, period, unless the power of attorney says, you know what, I'm gonna give you 20% XY dollars or $200 every month for overseeing me, I appreciate it, this, that, the other. So those are clauses and some things you can add if you want to, okay? And so that's what that all means. And so, and of course, cannot commit fraud on the elder. And so we hope that that's the case. I'm gonna say 90-something chance that it won't happen, but then again, there's that percentage where we hear the caretaker or the daughter, the family member is the one who did X, Y, Z. You know, some things are just not preventable, but can still be handled. And so always have, and that's why you wanna let the rest of the family or someone else know. So if Jody and Lisa, we both get a copy, and maybe Jody does everything, but Lisa has a copy to say, you know, I'm noticing some different changes, what's going on? Okay, Lisa has a copy to know what's going on, and so Jody should be able to prove that what's going on. If he can't, then what can happen is Lisa can say, you know what, I'm gonna do this other shit, because we don't have your stuff in fine-tuned right and everything that happened, because I wanna know what's going on, because I see you got a new farm, and the lights is off, and there's no groceries. You see what I'm saying? So all those things or whatever, so you cannot commit fraud, and so all those penal codes, all these partners that we deal with, all these agencies that have an elder unit will then become involved if you tell us. Because what we find a lot of times is people don't want to tell because maybe it's their relative. Maybe they're afraid you're gonna take all their responsibilities away. Maybe they're ashamed, like, oh my God, I'm a judge, how did this happen? You know, so many different reasons, yes.
I want to know, is financial agent the same as power of attorney?
Well, power of attorney is the name of the document in which you will have a financial agent work on your behalf. Okay?
This is a person.
Yeah, these are just some of the duties of your financial agent that you selected of what he can or cannot do.
Both of power of attorney, that agent have also the power of attorney.
I would say that again.
I'm kind of, I know that the way we filter is different. Right, but I'm just wondering if the financial agent can be part of the power of attorney.
Are you asking if the same person can manage both health and financial decisions?
No,
Can they? Yes.
what she's trying to tell you is that financial agent can be the same person as a power attorney.
Okay, so here's where the confusing part. First of all, power of attorney is just a document. That's where we're confused. It's a document. It don't have nothing to do with the agent or whatever. It's the document itself. When you start filling in the document, then when you fill it in, you say, I select my financial agent to be Lisa. So you're putting that on the power of attorney document. So we're talking two different things, okay? So you have your document, you selected me to make your decisions that we've discussed. Now you're putting that in on your document, okay? Does that make more sense for you? Okay, and to further that, if you want me to be on your power of attorney document, I can also be on your healthcare directive document or on your will, if that's what you want. Those are all documents that we've discussed, and they have the ability for you to add a person as a financial advisor, as a health advisor, whatever, to help make the decisions that you've already discussed. Makes more sense? A little bit more? You can always talk about it separately after our test.
I'm here to talk about something.
Oh, no, bring up the point, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, if you have a financial advisor, you have a power attorney, that he or she are making suggestions about what you do with your money, right or why. If you have a power attorney, that's a different person most of the time, family member, generally. That's
And so we're talking two different subjects, so you can have a financial advisor advisor, you can go out here and go next door to your company, Financial Advisor Incorporated, and hire them to look over all your stuff. Okay, so that's one thing. You can then do a financial power of attorney and appoint somebody to make decisions on your behalf. There are two different subjects, and in some cases, people without families may have their financial advisor be the person that they insert on the power of attorney. That's when we were talking about organizations. So it can cross-reference that way if that's the selection that you make, okay? And so, I mean, it's great to have a financial advisor, but when we're looking at a power of attorney, if you have a lot of assets, maybe you have a financial advisor that's kind of guiding, hey, you want to keep this and to do this, that, the other stock or whatever, maybe you should do this, that, the other, okay? And so when you look at the power of attorney, that's just your average Joe family member or whomever that you selected, and you're telling them, you know what, I got this stock account, I want you to manage it, but maybe to managing it, you need to talk to my financial advisor to make sure that we're all on the same page. So that's a way that can balance out. Everyone doesn't have that unique situation, but a lot of people do. You have businesses and assets and yada yada, so you may have that type of decision to make. So it's nothing wrong with that, but just be clear that everybody knows who everybody is and everybody knows what everybody's doing. That's where the problem falls off when we have multiples, especially in finances. So when you're looking at a power of attorney, it can come in a couple of different ways. This power of attorney shall take effect upon my incapacity. My incapacity shall be determined by my primary care physician in writing. So you can have a power of attorney that's active right now, but it says this statement. So I'm still in control of my full power of attorney anyway, but you can't really act on my behalf until I become incapacitated. Okay, that's how you set it up. So that's a way right there. Okay, you may never become incapacitated, but you do have someone there just in case you do. And then again, none of that can happen with this type of clause unless the primary care physician has it in writing, blah, 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 dad is not capable of making his decisions. Here's another clause. This power of attorney is effective immediately and will continue until it's revoked. So that's what a lot of people do, because even though when my mom did hers, she was able to make a lot of decisions. But when you have stuff here, there, retirements, stuff scattered, it becomes more complicated in wanting to make those decisions and remembering everything. So nowadays, we got everything is online, you got a password for this, I got so many passwords I can't even keep up, okay? And that's the truth. And so, as a senior, elder, navigating your stuff, those are things that may not be as easy for you to do or want to do. And so it's always good to have a layer right there. Now, if mom still has capacity, then she's checking the checkbook. What is this $50 for at Walmart? Groceries. I didn't have that much groceries, boy, you got detergent. You see what I'm saying? And so you have to balance and be mindful and think of everything. And so the last thing too that could be on a term of a power of attorney is this power of attorney will continue to be effective even though I become incapacitated. Okay? So it can be effective right now and I become, you're helping me now, I become incapacitated, you're still helping me. Same thing. So those are just layers and other things or preferences that are within the laws of what you may see or use on there. And so that's in a nutshell power of attorney. So trust is really quick. So a trust, they're established to provide legal protection for the trustor, you, and your assets, to make sure that your assets are distributed according to your wishes of the trustor, you, and to save time, reduce paperwork, and avoid inheritance, estate taxes, etc., etc. So a California living trust is a legal document that places some or all of your assets in control of a trust during your life. After death, the living trust, California assets are passed to the people you have selected as beneficiaries. Living trusts are popular estate planning too. So in other words, My name is Lisa Anderson, I live at 1301 Olive Street, Berlin, okay? That's my house, if you look it up on the county records, that's what it's gonna say. Well, now I put my house in a trust. So now what it's going to say, when you look up my address, it's going to say, in living trust, Lisa Anderson, 1301 Olive Street, Berlin. Okay. So let me just say what that means. So number one is, it's not just me. It's in a trust. All that information is at the property assessor's office, I gave it to everybody on the planet. And so now what happens is, number one is, let's say I want to refinance, or I want to, do something with my home. Well, the bank is gonna say, well, your home is in a trust, who are you? I gotta prove who I am to make a change because my house is in a trust. So that's a huge layer of protection. I gotta prove who I am, okay? And that's great, because now I feel secure, because I know any old fraudster is not gonna go in and do a real estate fraud transaction, which I'll give you an example of at some point before I lose that, okay? So that's number one. And so, if I'm selling the house, if somebody's selling the house, if it's not even me, if I'm not part of it and they can't prove I am because my house is in a trust, nothing is going down, nothing is changing. That trust is just a super layer of protection. And another thing a trust do, it kind of helps with your taxes if you do die, okay? The main thing that it does is and the trust is only available if you own a piece of property. So if you have a piece of real estate property, that's when one would consider a trust. And in a trust, when you do a trust, usually the attorney is going to do the healthcare director, power of attorney, will, and a trust. It's 4 documents all in one. That's about $5,000 generally, okay? And so with the trust, the best thing that is good for that is that if you die, then good old government Medicare, I always say I'm wrong, cannot come and attach a lien on your property and get some of their money back. So most people don't know that if you go and they pay some money, they have the right to come back and get some of the money off of a home that has the word I want, value in it still. You see what I'm saying? And so if it's in a trust, they can't even touch it, they can't even look at it. Okay, so that's another great advantage, other than the layer of protection in having your home in a trust. You got a question, ma'am?
Okay, so the person that makes the trust will notify, property to all that.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. You do the healthcare director, you give it to your doctor, they put it in the system. If you do a trust, you send it to your property management company, you can even send it to your lender or whatever. Everybody who's dealing with your property should kind of know that it's in a trust, and if they need something, they're gonna have to take a different type of route.
Okay, so we do the trust and then we send it.
Yeah, you have to send it to everybody. Nobody's gonna be like, oh my God, you just did a trust. Yeah, yes.
But you'd only want to trust if you have a home, if you don't own a home, you wouldn't want to trust?
Yeah, because the trust is to put the property in trust of. Okay, so when we're talking about a tangible real estate type of property, you wanna do that. If you're, let's say, like a lot of people, if you're a renter or this, that, the other, then you just do your other stuff. Your power of attorney for your finances, hey, my social security, everything is set up this way, yada, yada, yada. And so those other things can satisfy what you need, but the trust is just an additional layer because we're speaking real property. And so what happens, I'll just throw it in right now, real property, we see it all the time. We've picked up a lot of these cases over the years, and maybe you've seen some on the news. And so what happens is, this one that I'm thinking of, I can't think of the name of the family. They were in their 80s. I want to feel like they were in this vicinity, okay? San Fernando Valley for short, okay? And what happened is, their lovely grandson, Joey, that's my favorite name. Joey is coming to the house every day, taking them to breakfast. Oh, grandma, grandpa, such a beautiful relationship, right? And so Joey's doing this on and off for about a year. And so they're going to breakfast, and the neighbors start noticing that every time they went to breakfast, that some strangers would come up to their house and go inside. And so the neighbor, Mrs. Crabbe, she's like, who's going in the neighbor's house? Let me figure this out right now. And so she starts digging around and goes to the property records, which is public, and finds out that their house was on the market to be sold. Not only that, but when you go in those property records, it will tell you, oh, $100,000 loan was taken out in December 2024, 50,000 was taken out in June 20. It shows you all of that. So Mrs. Crab is like, oh my God, what's going on? Something is happening. It's no way they know what's happening. And so, of course, when she got a chance to talk to the neighbors directly, she's like, look, your house is up for sale. People are coming in and out, and this, that, the other. Look, here's your stuff. We're going to go out. They're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? This is what's really happening. And so Joey comes over the next day for breakfast. They hit him with it. Joey, what's going on? I don't know nothing. This is a mistake. Let me take care of it for you, blah, blah, blah. Joey left, stopped talking to him. Their house had been sold, okay? They went on the news to do a GoFundMe. They had 60 days, they had 30 days to move out. So you're talking about how somebody lived there 50 plus years, so you know how much stuff is in there. You know, you still got some receipts from 20 years ago that you didn't want to throw out. Realistically, okay? So they had 30 days to leave, and here's the sad part. California is very difficult for a senior to find housing. That's one of the things we work on all the time. You know, so you can see that in the flyers, whatever. And you become displaced, you're a senior. Nobody wants to rent to you because number one is it's lower rent. They need to have ramps and all these other codes in place. And so why would I want to rent to you when I can rent to the working couple over there and charge 3 times as much? Don't have to have a rent. Don't have to do this, that, the other. So I don't want to rent to you. Okay? And so they had to go from me on Channel 5 to try to get some money because they needed somewhere to live. And guess what? The bank is like, well, to the bank, if the transaction came to them and it was legitimate, they had a legitimate buyer, they can able to verify this person. Joey has the house in his name because, of course, he tricked grandma into signs, and here's sign this on for these groceries or whatever. Somebody said, no, Joey, here, I'm a sign, didn't read a thing. It happens all the time because you trust Joey, you love him, he takes you to breakfast every other day. Why are you looking at what he's saying? He told you what it said. And so how many times do you go somewhere and they say, all you gotta do is sign here. It says, we provide legal services. That's it, sign here. And then this is me, people hate me. I open the house and go, you mean to tell me this 2 pages only say that one line you said? You know, I'm just saying, I can't just sign here. And that has happened to me years ago. I did a sign here and stuck in a contract and yada, yada, yada. So if it takes me 10 days to read all those forms, then that's how long it's gonna take. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a rush. Nothing is gonna disappear. The senior discount is not gonna leave if I don't do it today. And all these different reasons why people rush you into making decisions. Okay? And so what happened? The bank looked at it, everything was legitimate, so the bank was like, you know what, we can sell you back your house at the current market value. And so of course they couldn't afford that. They got some GoFundMes, found a little place somewhere, you know, that wasn't what they wanted, and that was the end of that. We see those cases all day long. So what is a trust? The most common trust is a revocable living trust, a legal document that places your assets, bank accounts, real estate, personal property, etc., in a trust for your benefit during your lifetime and specifies where it can go upon your death. You transfer assets into the name of the trust. Okay, my house is in the name of the trust, but I still retain control. So I can still get a loan, I can still do stuff once I prove who I am to the people or the powers that be. You can change or revoke your trustee, meaning Joey, who's on my trust to handle my stuff. I can change him at any time during my life, okay? I can also name someone aside of Joey. If Joey can't handle it, then Sally, you're next in line. Successor trustee, or what if Joey dies or whatever, or Joey becomes incapacitated mentally, then you have a successor who could then do it without you redoing the paperwork. So those are kind of in a nutshell what it is to be a trust. Revocable trust, management during life, testamentary after death. So somebody can still, you know, try to contest it because they contest everything. It was 2 pieces of cheese on the McDonald's burger, but it was really one. You know, you can contest it. Anything is contestable, okay? Settler is the person who creates the trust. Okay, the trustee, the person who manages the trust. Successor trustee, the person who manages after the settler's death or incapacity, okay? So those are just the general things about a trust. Advantages: avoid the need for probate, court intervention, that's when we talked about the money. Avoids the Medi-Cal estate claim, after you die, they wanna come and get some of the property, some of the money back. Manage property during your life and after death, so you have control while you're living, while you're sound, when you're not, after the death. Avoid conservatorship and guardianship, again, that's money, that's the court, that's being accountable to the court until death do them part, okay? And maybe a tax planning opportunity, if it rolls over into the family, they can still have the original taxes that you've been paying for 30 years. So you paying taxes, $2,000 a month, the rest of your neighborhood is paying taxes $8,000 a month, okay? So that's how a trust can give you some advantages there. And so let's see, conservatorship, so we kind of talked about what a conservative is. If you have a disabled adult, a general conservatorship is for an adult who needs assistance of another party to handle their finances. So we talked about that. He doesn't want it, but he needs it, okay? General conservatorships are granted to those elderly who have been impaired by illness, maybe you went blind, your hearing loss, a lot of things as the age becomes sudden. And I swear to you, every year on my birthday, just the day before my birthday, I get something new. Oh, I can't see. Like, oh, my leg is hurting. Like every year, it never fails. The day before my birthday, something goes off. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been waiting to get over here. Now I got the Bengay and, all this other kind of stuff. And it's just a natural thing, but, if I'm planning for it, now I feel better. If I need the Bengay, just buy a lot of it, and just do some other things, because I'm in a planning stage. I'm realizing what could come and what may not come, okay? And so those are how those things are worked out. Sometimes a conservatorship can be avoided, and so maybe Joey is my power of attorney, and he has a sister Sally, and she's noticing that Joey is not up to par. And so if Joey's not up to par, Sally's coming in questioning Joey and wants to know whatever's going on, and so she might have to go and apply for a conservatorship to get over that kind of stuff. And then the other thing is like the principal, meaning Dad, refuses to cooperate. That's what I'm talking about. Dad is like, I'm good, I don't need your help, okay? And so I'm gonna wrap this up. We have our clinic. It's in the book, the phone number, anything you need from us, we're able to do that for you, so we don't have to talk about that. Keep in mind, only a licensed, experienced estate planning attorney qualified to prepare your estate planning documents and guide you through the process. So when you choose an attorney, you should check the State Bar Association, which we talked about that, to make sure that the person is licensed. And the last thing I will tell you is, again, beware if somebody's calling you on the phone, hey, I can do this for you for free, or whatever the phone calls, the email pops up, make sure it's a reputable attorney. And this is a true story of Montebello. I did this presentation, and the lady, wanted to have the service or whatever. And she said, I went online and I got one and I paid them $500. And I said, oh, okay, what did you get? Nothing. The website disappeared. I didn't know nothing, yada, yada, yada. And so this lady, unfortunately, went in and put all her information. So, if you're doing some documents like this, you gotta put everything. Address, social, kids, whatever you put on there. Put all her information, paid $500, and the website disappeared. And so, not only did she lose her money, but it's an identity theft. Medicare, hospital theft, whatever. Theft comes in all ways. Last thing I'm gonna tell you, because we're done with this, advanced planning can prevent scams, financial scams, medical scams, identity theft, real estate fraud. And so we kind of talked about some of those different things here. And so that kind of gives you the gist of why this is important and why I want to come out late or not and talk to you about these types of things, because I want you to know that it's available for you. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass you out the Legal Legacy form here. I have enough of them, and a stamp check form. Just kind of have. I'll give you a bag too. Hopefully this is enough. And then this, if you want the Leaving the Legacy, which is everything we talked about today, on that flyer, you call in, or you can email me, one of the two, and say, hey, I was at this presentation, I heard the necessary information, I want to be in queue for those services. You know, before, we used to come out and do it a little in person, but everything has shifted to the flyers. And so we don't have that available, but if you call in on the number, it will automatically, put you in a queue through me to have those services done and then get the return. Okay? So that's my presentation today. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you.